Behind me, I have a new production monitor from OSEE. It is the Mega 22S. It is a 21.5-inch 10-bit production monitor, which is pretty cool. Now, full disclosure, they did send this out to me to test and review, and I've taken on a job with me, so I've gotten some field experience with it as well. But be rest assured that this is going to be a fair review. They don't have any input into what I say about this monitor, and there are some good things and there are some not so good things about this monitor, and I just want to cover that from my first impressions point of view from taking this out on a job with me and just testing it here in the office and at home and all that stuff. So this isn't going to be a super tech spec heavy video. You can go look at all the tech specs on the website, and I'll leave the tech specs in the description and throw it up on the screen as well for you. What I want to do in this video is just kind of talk about like my overall experience with this monitor, talk about some of the features of the monitor and things that stand out to me, and then talk about some of the things that I don't like about this monitor, and there could be some deal breakers for you depending on what you're looking for in a production monitor. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. So let's talk about just like general features of this monitor. It's 21.5-inch 10-bit 1920 by 1080 monitor, capable of 1500 nits of brightness, which is sweet. Now on the front, you have a 3.5mm jack for headphones for monitoring. You also have a USB-A input, which is good, used for firmware updates and also loading up LUTs. You have a source button, which allows you to toggle between the SDI 1, SDI 2, and HDMI input. And then next to that, you have 4 function buttons, which you can toggle off different tools for your page, and you can kind of customize that depending on what you want to have on there. Then you have this like multi-function scroll wheel toggle button thing that helps you navigate through the menus, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit later in the video. And then next to that, you have a power button. That's all on the front. On the top, you have a carry handle, which is nice. And then on the bottom, you have these feet that are mounted so you can lay it on a flat surface like you see right here. On the back, you have your inputs. So you have 2 SDI in, which you can also loop out, and then you have an HDMI in. The SDI in are 3G SDI, so they are capable of HD resolution, and then the HDMI is capable of 4K 30p resolution. It also comes with a battery plate. I chose V-mount, but you can get gold mount if you prefer that. And then below that, there is also a monitor mount for a stand, which is really cool that they include that. And then there are just a bunch of different mounting points all throughout the monitor for mounting different things. You can relocate the battery plate if you want to and put up like a VESA monitor mount, which is probably what I'm going to do, because I have like a nicer Matthews VESA mount for a baby pin, which is probably what I'm going to swap over to this. And then there's also just other places where you can mount like a cheese plate, which I think they have a cheese plate on the website, but I'm pretty sure I saw it was like $80, which is like highway robbery for a little cheese plate. So you could probably find a better solution. I used Velcro to mount my wireless monitor to it, but there's a bunch of different mounting points, and then you have your power switch and your power input if you want to run it off of AC power. But me personally, I just prefer to use V-mount batteries. In fact, the last shoot I used a Core shark fin adapter and put 150 watt hour and a 98 watt hour battery on there just so I knew I would have enough runtime for the shoot when I set up, and had plenty of juice left. And now I have like a small rig 212, like the new really big battery, and when I mounted it on there, the little indicator said it had like 7 hours of runtime. So that's probably the battery I'm going to use going forward to power it. That's what's powering it right now. And then lastly, just under the IO, I forgot to mention this, there's a USB-C in, and that is where you can put your calibration tool to calibrate the monitor. All right, so that's a general overview of the monitor. Hopefully that was helpful to you, but if you're looking for more specs and stuff, like I said, head over to the website and you'll get all the information there. Now I kind of want to shift gears and talk about some of the things that I just really like about this monitor, just from a user experience standpoint, using it on an actual project. And then some of the things that I don't like about this monitor that could be a deal breaker to you depending on what you're looking for in a production monitor. But let's start off with the good. And first thing is the size. I think this is the perfect size of a production monitor for a client monitor. And that's like my intended use for this typically is for a client monitor. I'm comfortable enough looking at my 7-inch monitors on my cameras, but that has like all the information overlays, focus peaking, toggling false color, all that kind of stuff that the client doesn't need to see and might even just be like more confusing and distracting to the client. Those monitors are fine for me for operating, but for a client, I think it's nicer to give them a bigger production monitor to view. It gives them a better viewing experience. And honestly, like, I think it just shows that you're going the extra step to make sure that the client is having the best onset experience as possible. And I think part of that is giving them a really good viewing experience. And I think this production monitor does exactly that. Next up is the pre-cut foam for the Pelican case. I think it's really cool, nice touch that they have the foam cut out for a specific case. I went on Amazon and found a warehouse deal on a Pelican 1600 for like 120 bucks. And for me, I think that's well worth the protection and the investment. And all my other cases are Pelican cases anyways. So I trust Pelican cases. They're really sturdy. And it's just nice that, you know, it's pre-cut for the case, and they actually have some tape on the bottom, some sticky tape on the bottom to be able to like actually secure it to the case so it's not flopping around and everything. Next up is the included battery plate. Like I said, I have the V-mount battery plate, but you can get gold mount. I just think that's nice that you can power the whole thing off of V-mount batteries and not have to worry about using house power or anything, or just even like if you're running like a wireless system like Hollyland or Teradek or something, you can have it completely cableless and mobile. And like I use it on a rolling stand, so we could roll the monitor wherever we wanted. So that was pretty cool. And that wouldn't have been possible without powering it through V-mount. So it's nice that they actually include that V-mount plate. Next up are the function buttons on the front. I love the fact that you can just quickly toggle on different tools that you'd use. I really like that you can calibrate this monitor. That's just another peace of mind that you can calibrate it before your shoots and just have really accurate color representation on set, and that's really cool. And because you can calibrate it, you could technically use it as a quick color grading monitor or a reference monitor. It's not going to replace like dedicated reference monitors, but in a pinch, especially if you're out in the field, you could use that to do a quick grade or pass or something to send over to your director, or maybe send over to the client and see if they like the final look. There's that. And then also just like how they prioritize more SDI inputs over HDMI. SDI is certainly a more professional connection than HDMI, but it is nice that they did include one HDMI at least, because some cameras like the Cinema Camera 6K that I'm using right now from Blackmagic has an HDMI out. So it's nice that I can just plug directly into that and not have to fuss with any kind of converter box or anything like that. All right, so those are some of the things that I really like about the monitor. Now I want to shift gears and talk about the not so good, because there are some things that, at least in my opinion, I think are pretty big misses. So number one is just navigating through the menus and using this little multi-dial wheel thingy. I think this is super poorly implemented in my opinion. So basically this scroll wheel dial thingy, whatever they call it, there are a number of different ways to use it. You can use it as like a dial, like a rotary dial, like if you're like turning the volume up in your car stereo, you can do it like that. You can push it to the left or to the right and you'll like hear audible clicks, which is cool. And then you can push it in, which is like kind of like enter. The problem is it's super sensitive, and every time I go to like push it in to like hit okay or whatever, I almost always knock it to the left or the right or up or down. So that's super frustrating. And I also just wish there was a back button and like a set button, like, and then the rotary dial thing or whatever the thing's called. That would make it much more user friendly. I find myself always just fumbling through the menu system and forgetting how to like get out of the menu system. Like, it's a really poorly implemented menu system in my opinion, and navigating the menu system isn't necessarily poor. Its implementation is just not very intuitive, and like it's more complicated than I feel like it should be. So that's all I'll say on that. The next thing is it doesn't have picture by picture or any kind of multi-view, which I think is another huge miss. Especially, I mean, this isn't an inexpensive monitor, at least at the time of recording this, at basically $1,400 US. I think it should have come with some kind of multi-view support. Now from a client viewing experience, it's not that big of a deal because typically the client would prefer to just see like one camera angle at a time. Like for, you know, camera A, for example, that's typically the picture that you're gonna give them. But I've been on shoots where the client wants to see all 3 camera angles all at once when things are going on, and you know, that's just not possible with this monitor. But also, if you're to use this monitor not as a client monitor, but as a like director or maybe like the DP or somebody wants to see all 3 camera angles all at once, that's just not possible with this monitor. And I really wish it was, because I think that is a huge selling point and something that with like production monitors, that's something that I come to expect with production monitors. I don't know if that's something that could be added through firmware or anything, but I do think that is a huge miss with the Mega 22S. So that pretty much wraps up my complaints with this monitor, but I felt like those were worthwhile enough from my experience to share with you. So if those are deal breakers for you, then you should certainly look elsewhere for a production monitor. But if not, then this is still a really great monitor. And if you don't care about picture by picture, then I think this is a really nice monitor. Navigating through the menus is kind of a pain, but once you kind of get things set up, then you don't really have to use that dial wheel all that often. So at least that's a plus. You can use the function buttons, which is typically I'll like live on a page and just use the function buttons to turn different things on and off. But yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to mention about the monitor, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that kind of good stuff. If you found this helpful, let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and appreciate you watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Peace.